So according to the rubric, after we get the location, and I mean by the location the object that had three things: the name, the longitude, and the latitude, and that's what we got from the server. So if you remember, that is what we got from calling the API. We got an object with three properties, so we send them to the client, and in the client side here we should be able to receive this data and return this data, and it will be returned finally in our handle submit. So now we have data coming from the location. Why we need these data and how we will use them? Let me first make sure that we are really getting the data and that the internet is finally, well, I have a problem with the internet, but it comes and goes. I don't know why, but at least the API is working fine. So we have no problems now. We have the longitude, the latitude, and the name coming to the client side. Okay. So now, why we need this data? Actually, you know that we have three APIs according to the rubric. So when we get the location, longitude, and latitude, we will be able to call the second API, which is the Weatherbit. And the Weatherbit is actually working on two options. The first one is when you try to get the current weather, which is the thing required and asked by the rubric also. So now what you have to do is to send this longitude and latitude to the Weatherbit API, and the Weatherbit API will tell you the weather. And this is one of three pieces of information needed by the results, just like according to the terms of the project in Udacity. You need the weather, you need the location, you need the remaining days, which we will do right now, and you need also a picture of the city. So now we have got rid of the first task, which is getting the location, the longitude, and the latitude, and we should now get these things from the location. So we have a name, a longitude, and a latitude, and these three properties have values inside this object coming from the server. But to do that and be able to work safely, I should turn that into an asynchronous function, because you know, here I'm dealing with an API, and the API is returning data. So to be able to work fine, I should make the whole handle submit function as an asynchronous function, because it is waiting for some data here. So once I get this data that is coming from here, and this is calling the server and all that stuff, I should be able to extract and destruct these three properties from the object coming or returned. Now once I do that, I should now be able to make a function for the second API, and I will call it, for example, get weather. And in the get weather, I will get the weather from, and let me just like put that as weather, because it will be an object at the end, and the function is get weather, and I'll give it the longitude and the latitude. But is that enough? And unfortunately no, you need the remaining days. Why? Because as we said, you will work on two things in the Get Weather API. Either the Weather API working for the current weather or for the forecast weather. So you need to give it the remaining days, because in the server side, when we go to see how we can get the weather, we will need to tell the Weather API exactly which link, which URL to use, because we will have two URLs, and I will show you now how we will get these URLs. So as I told you, to get the weather now, we need the longitude, the latitude, and the remaining days, because once we get the remaining days, we will be able to set or decide which API we will call, or which URL we will call. So we will get two URLs and we will deal with one of them. One of them is the current weather according to the remaining days. If it's less than 7, we will call the current weather. If it's not less than 7 days, we will call the forecast. So let's first, before this one, let's get at first something called, we may call it const our days, and the our days means the remaining days. So we will make a function for that too. So get our days, and for the get our days, what should we give it? Yeah, we should give it the date coming from the form, because the date coming from the form is the date that we want to calculate or subtract from the recent date. So to do that, we need to get that from the DOM. So we can say const date equal document dot query selector, and we will get date. So let me see, but I don't think I have, it's an ID, right? We can get that from the index.html, and here it is, it's for date, so the ID is date, so it's an ID. Okay, so now we will have the date, but of course this will not be the date, this will be the date input, because to get the date value, we will get it from the date input after the submit, because before the submit, this is just an element. So after the submit, we can say date input dot value to get the value of the date the user entered. And so I'll get that from here. I'll say const date will equal date dot input dot value. So, and let me comment this. We say getting the value of the input. Okay, so now we got the value of the input, and the last thing we should do is to put that here and get the remaining days. So the main focus now, my friends, and I want you to focus. I hope I'm not distracting you or confusing you or anything. We are walking in a range, in order. So we got the location and we should get the weather, but before we get the weather, we need to give the weather something called the R days. And to give the weather the R days, we need to get the R days. So let me get that here and go to ask for it. So if I say get R days, it will equal, and it will take a date as a parameter, and it will return for me. So let's now set the start and end date. So what is the start date? Actually, the start date is actually the current date, because suppose that I will fly after 7 days from now, so I need to know what is now. So let me make now, maybe make a const called now. So the now const means what is the date now, and to do that it's very easy. We will do new date and we will leave it empty, because if we didn't put for the date function, which is a function by JavaScript, a default function that can calculate the date and give you a string or something that represents the date with days, months and years. But if we left it empty like this, we didn't give it a certain date or something, this means it will give us today's date and this moment date. So it's very, very precise. And now another one, which we will call maybe travel date, which is a date we will travel in. And to get that date, I need to also make the same function again, but this time I'll give it the date coming from the value entered by the man who will travel, so the client. So the client will put the date he wants to travel in, and now all we need is to subtract the travel date minus the now, and by this way we will get how many days left for that. So I can also call it time difference. So the time difference equals the travel date, and I will make a function called get time. The get time actually will get me how many days left, and this is what I actually need. So getting how many days left is very important thing, because I will need it to get my time exactly in days. So let me first do that and see what will get time will equal, because the get time actually I think it's a function that will give me the seconds or something, and these seconds I will turn it into maybe just like a real time by another equation. So it's the same thing here, get time. Let me see or console log that, but to console log that, as you know, I may cancel this because this will not work now, because I don't want it to work. And let me say here console log our days, just to see what is the result of the our days. So let me calculate the time difference and the console log the time difference. So now the city, whatever, and the time is like this, and let's submit. Okay, let's see what is happening. I think I lost the server. I didn't lose the server. Well, that's strange, you know, because I should be able to. I don't know what is happening. Get our days is not defined. Okay. To get our days, okay, we should, I think, put here the word const. Get our days. So let's see now what will happen. Yeah, I think we don't have that thing now. So let's see. So I got, of course, the city, the latitude and the longitude, but I got also a time. I think it's represented by seconds or something. So get time is actually getting me the days. I don't know, maybe there is another function that can get me the days, but I can turn that into days with a very just like a simple equation that I got from the internet. But let's also maybe but I think get day will get me the name of the day. I don't need the name of the day. So as you see, we don't have anything here that can count how many days run through this, because it will be so strange. So let's just like get the time, and I will show you how to, from getting the time, which is in seconds, I think, it will be easier to get the days. So the days will equal now, and let me call it the remaining days, and put it in a const called remaining days, will equal, actually I'll make math dot seal, which will just like deal with any fractions and decimal numbers left and make them turn into 1 or 0, because we don't need the halves here while doing that. So I'll say the time difference, and I will divide that by 1000 multiplied by 3600 and multiplied by 4. So by this way, I am converting the time difference to a day. This is what's the meaning here. And actually, if we try to understand what are these numbers here, yeah, so I guess the day has 24 hours multiplied by 3,600 minutes, I do think so, multiplied by 1,000 second. It's something like that, guys. Anyway, we don't have to understand this, because to get the remaining days we'll get that from another source, because it's not your job right now. But however, we are turning that into seconds too, and we want to calculate the seconds of a day and divide the seconds left from these 2 days. I mean, for example, maybe you will have here 2 billion seconds, whatever. 2 billion seconds means from the day we will travel, from the day of now till the day we will travel, we will have 2 billion days. So if we want to know how many are the 2 billion days in days, we need to convert them to 24 hours. And this is the equation here. However, this will get us the time difference. So we need now to console log the R days. Okay, so let's console log the R days. London 19, and yep, it is working. So from now on to 19 of August, I have 8 days. And this is cool, because now I have a valid equation to get me the days. So yes, everything is now fine. We have the days, and the last thing we should do is to remove this console log and return whatever the R days are. Okay, so now we have finished. Return the remaining days. So return the remaining days means that now we can make this function valid, and we can now put the R days here. This function we don't need to await because it's not synchronous function. And now we need to make a function called getWeather. So if I set getWeather and I gave it the same things, let me see what are the same things. I will make the parameter equal the names of the arguments. This is totally fine, and I'll make like this, and I'll start to make an Axios call and give the 3 pieces of information we got to the server. So I will send that to the server, and to do that, let me copy paste that quickly the way we post things. So let me just like copy it from here, because we will not do anything different. The same thing we will do, but let me show you how we will do it in a different way, because this time I will not just like send the form itself. I will send an Axios post to another bus called getWeather, and I will also not send a form. I will send instead an object, and the object will contain the whole data I need to send. And after this object, I'll make a comma to send the headers, but I don't think that there will be headers this time according to Axios library, because in Axios, if you're gonna need to send something like some data or some form of data, then you don't need to do that in that way of sending a header and that stuff. So let me see now what will happen. And actually I forgot these things, you know, and I forgot this thing too. So yep, and make that asynchronous. Okay, so we have now a valid asynchronous function with 3 parameters. It contains an Axios post request with data that should be returned from it, and here is the Axios post, and I need now to send my object, and this is according actually to Axios JS. Here I want to show you that in the documentation how I got this. Alright, so here are the post requests, and when you go to the post requests, you can post data like this way. So you just define what is the path and you put an object. But sending a form has another way, which was we used previously, which is we put the path, and we may also put what is going to be the object, but there is another way. I saw it here. Where it is. Yeah, put an HTML form as JSON. Here it is. So we will put the slash path, and we will put the document.query selector, the form, which we have done, and then the headers, we have done it this way. We have just like we set what is the form, and we send it here to Axios post. So this is the way of sending the form, but this is another way to send just an object with the data, whatever the data we want. And to do that, I don't have to say latitude again. I can just write latitude, and the object itself will understand according to the new or the correct way of writing JS, that he will understand that this is actually the same property with the value inside the same name. So you have a name here, you can put it as a property and value at the same time by this way. This way we have sent the get weather to an API called, or sorry, to a path called get weather. So the get weather path should be here in our router. We will copy that again, but this time it will not be with this name, it will be with this name, and we will remove this, cancel that, and cancel that right now. And we just want to know if we got the request.body we need or not. We just want to know what's in the request.body, which will appear here once we send any data. So let's send data now, make like this, and 18, and submit. Why nothing is here? I think I removed everything. The app crashed. Okay, let's see why. I think maybe it's from the internet, because today is the day of paying the internet, so it starts to lose its gigabytes or something. Yeah, I think it is about that. Let me see. Let me here refresh the server and start again. Do the same thing. Yep, we have the data here. As I told you, there is no mistake in the code itself. So here it is. Yes, we have the request.body, and we have this in our body, an object with the latitude, the longitude, and the remaining days. All we need now is to destruct these 3 values from their properties and make them independent constants, and start sending them to a new file just like this one that will now deal with the weather. So that we will do, but give me 1 second to prepare for the next video.